And he just ought to keep his goddamn big mouth shut on foreign affairs, at least until the election's over. Because this comes back to me, and my judgment is it comes back from this very source that I'm talking about to point out to me how irresponsible he is.
Right.
And he doesn't know it. He's just just dancing around with the ball in the air. That's number one.
Thank you for joining me for another installment of my video series, the LBJ tapes. I hope you enjoy listening to them as they provide great insights into what President Johnson was thinking at the time, as well as those around him. As scholars and others have pointed out, Johnson, Nixon, and others, after the initial installation of the taping system, simply forgot about it and became accustomed to talking freely, as much as a president ever talks freely, out of sight, out of mind. The 1964 Johnson conversations are particularly unique in that they blend politics and war. Remember, 1964 was uncharted territory for Johnson. He was president, but had not been elected president. He was facing an election campaign that fall. He had no vice president, and he would have to choose one as a running mate, all the while threading the needle between a looming Vietnam War, funding his great society, and trying to win election. This conversation is from 6 August 1964 at 1:35 in the afternoon, 3 months before Election Day. Johnson is speaking with James Rowe, an associate of Johnson's from the New Deal, and who was a close friend and advisor of Minnesota Senator Hubert Humphrey. At this point, Humphrey was the front-runner for the vice presidential nomination and, of course, who became Johnson's choice. The Gulf of Tonkin incident had occurred only 4 days earlier. Johnson had launched the first attacks against North Vietnam, and in its aftermath, Humphrey had made some ill-considered and all too accurate remarks to the press that really riled President Johnson and caused Johnson to question Humphrey's ability to keep a secret.
Good morning, gentlemen. As you know, on August 2nd, and again on August 4th, North Vietnamese surface vessels attacked U.S. destroyers operating on routine patrol in international waters in the Gulf of Tonkin. In retaliation for this unprovoked attack on the high seas, our forces have struck the bases used by the North Vietnamese patrol craft. During the night, 64 attack sorties were launched from the U.S. carriers Ticonderoga and Constellation against 4 North Vietnamese patrol bases and certain support facilities associated with those bases.
After asking Rowe to send a message to Humphrey, without Humphrey knowing it came from Johnson, Johnson went over recent poll numbers with Rowe and discussed his prospects for picking up considerable Republican support. This Republican so-called frontlash, as Johnson soon labeled it, offered the potential to overcome a white backlash, an idea that Johnson took great pains to promote over the next few weeks.
Mr. Rowe.
Hello?
Jim,
Yes, Mr. President.
how you doing?
I'm doing fine. You?
Pretty good. When are you going to be back here?
I'll be back in Sunday night.
I don't know. I don't know how to get this message over, but this boy, our friend Hubert, is just destroying himself with his big mouth.
Is he talking again?
Yeah, all the time. He just can't stop it. He just got hydrophobia, and every responsible person gets frightened when they see him. He hasn't missed any program, or he's just like a wild man when he kind of sees this thing in the distance. And what he ought to do is be a very retiring and very sober and very judicious and fella. Now, yesterday morning, he went on the TV, and looks like he's got by with it, but he said everybody in the Joint Chiefs of Staff and every person in town that's handling war plans, it just scared them to death, because he just blabbed everything that he had heard in a briefing, just like it was his personal knowledge.
Wow.
And almost wanted to claim credit for it. They said, for instance, how would you account for these pitiable attack on our destroyers when we innocently out there in the Gulf 60 miles from shore? And McNamara said that is a very difficult thing to explain the reasoning of these people. It may be that they wanted to try to scare us out of the area, but that he couldn't explain communist thinking on a good many matters. Rusk said substantially the same thing. Humphrey said, well, we have been carrying on some operations in that area, and we've been having some covert operations where we have been going in and knocking out roads and petroleum things and so forth, and that's exactly what we have been doing. But the damn fool got it up, and now he's got Morse talking about it, who wasn't in on the briefing. And it's just, you just got to understand that you can't talk about war plans. You just can't talk about it. Now, this morning,
Carrier out there on the war.
This morning, a fellow called me very upset, one of the highest officials in the government, and said, have you talked to Humphrey about a communication from Khrushchev? And I said, no. I haven't seen Humphrey, haven't seen anybody around Humphrey. Haven't talked to my wife, haven't talked to a human being. Well, Humphrey has discussed the details of communications with Khrushchev that somebody must have let him know about, and with a correspondent for NBC. And it's the one thing that could make Khrushchev drop a bomb on us. And he just ought to keep his goddamn big mouth shut on foreign affairs, at least until the election's over. And just say that this has just got people running wild, and they're running in every moment to me. And for him not to be speculating on why the communists would be doing something. Just say that's, I've got all I can do speculating on why I do something. But it's not up to me. They don't pay him to do this. This is not like he's getting a fee to speak to the druggist. He's just doing this free. And he's hurting his government, he's hurting us. And the Khrushchev thing, if they ask him anything about Khrushchev, just say, frankly, I don't know. It's not going to hurt him to say, I don't know 100 times. If I could pick out one expression for him, it would be to eliminate the word I in everything, and just say, don't know. Then they'd regard him as stable. And a good many people have talked to me in meetings. Henry Ford went to a lunch with him yesterday and said, looked to me like that he's going a little bit strong on how he feels about business, kind of copying what you're doing, but I rather like him, and if you feel that he's stable enough and this doesn't take off, it would be, he's an interesting person and a very scintillating person and rather stimulating. But what his course of action ought to be without regard to anyone. Now there's a poll I've just got. It's a good thing for him to let his friends talk to these people and for them to say that it's up to the president to select what they're for Humphrey. His friend said with a grin this morning he'd written a note to fellow cabinet officers saying, I'm sorry to have taken so many nice fellows over the side. I'm a little bit in awe of you when I think of my own position. You're not members of the cabinet, and you don't meet regularly with the cabinet, therefore you're eligible for vice president. He's trying to make a joke of it and try and still stay in the running. He's appearing every day, and he's sending wires every day saying reconsider, and he's trying to get that, and if that can't happen, he's trying to leave the impression he's going to name him. And that's the one thing that could hurt Hubert if he became the nominee and running around with this guy with his arm around him, getting his pictures on the front page. That's the last thing he wants to do. Yeah.
About the boy.
Yeah, and he was up there with him, and he got his picture on the front page of the New York News yesterday, and they were laughing and giggling at each other. And the same forces that worked on him are working on Hubert.
Yeah.
And he ought to completely, if he's going to put his arm around somebody right now, I'd put it around Ralph Yarber or Dick Russell or somebody, not be running in here, because he doesn't need this guy's support. He's got their support.
That's right.
The liberals and the Negroes and that group have already talked to me about him. But he's attracting to him the same enemies by doing things he doesn't need to do.
Right.
And but Elmo Roper's got a devastating poll that shows that Kennedy is way out. Everybody wants him. And Stevenson and Humphrey in there, but and he'd also make the best president.
Kennedy?
Yeah. It seems clear.
Find anybody who wants him.
It seems clear that President Johnson will be the Democratic candidate for president, but I'd like to ask a few questions about the vice president. Regardless of whom you yourself may favor, which of the men on the list do you think would add the most votes to the Johnson ticket? Brown 3, Humphrey 11, Kennedy 47, Mansfield 2, McCarthy 1, McNamara 5, Shriver 5, Stevenson 8, Wagner 3, Nunn 2, 15, don't know, 1 refused. So he got 47, which is considerably more than all of them. Of the Democrats, he's got 52%. Of the Republicans, 40% say he'd add the most to the ticket. Of the Independents, 44 say. Of the other parties, 50 say. So that's the one that add the most to the ticket. That's coming out in Life magazine. They're running this fella awful strong.
Yeah.
It seems clear that Johnson will be the nominee, and I'd like to ask you a question. First, regardless of whom you yourself may favor, which of the men on the ticket do you think would add the most votes? Now, this course is especially mindful of the fact vice president can become president any time. Which of the men on the list do you think would make the best president? Brown 2, Humphrey 11, Kennedy 27, Mansfield 3, McCarthy 1, McNamara 9, Shriver 3, Stevenson 21, Wagner 2, Nunn 3, don't know 18. Now, this is coming out Monday, you see. This is trying to take it out of the hands of the politicians, show how the people want it. That's the purpose of this.
Well, they're just voting on names that they know.
That's right. But that's what they're going to be doing up at Atlantic City.
Yeah.
So if I were him, I would advise 2 courses. And this is by no way implication or commitment or anything, because I want to have lots of talks before I ever agree on who I'm going to recommend. But there are 2 things he ought to do. Pretty well stay out of the delicate technical field of what Khrushchev's thinking and what the communists thinking, or what caused this, like he did on NBC, and like he did this morning to Martin Agronsky. Now, because this comes back to me, and my judgment is it comes back from this very source that I'm talking about to point out to me how irresponsible he is.
Right.
And he doesn't know it. He's just gag, just dancing around with the ball in the air. That's number one. So I think that's the first thing I'd do. Just say nothing about Khrushchev or the communists or what's causing this. That could be a blooper, because that can ruin a man mighty quick. The second thing I'd do, I would, without showing my hand, but any friends I had, have them say what he's had Dick Hughes say yesterday and what he had others say. He sure ought to get Dick Daley to think that he's a good man, which I don't think he's got done yet. And I think the Dick Daleys and the New York people, the Wagners, and all those folks are awfully important. He's around with the people that really haven't got many votes. He got Hughes. Hughes got some votes. But he ought to get those to give out these statements, because this guy is still hollering reconsider.
All right, I'll get it done.
But that's real odd that many would think that he'd make the best president. It's 27. That's considerably down from his other. He's 47, you see, and he's down to 27.
Yes,
But
they make some distinctions, but they're still voting on names they know, like Stevenson and Kennedy.
well, but Stevenson, that's right. Johnson is 58. Who do you think you'll probably be voting for president? Johnson and Goldwater. Johnson's 58, Goldwater's 25. Johnson got 54% of the males, and 27%. Goldwater got 27. I'm just 2-1.
This is the Roper poll.
Females, I got 62 to 22.
How recent was it?
It's just now, just coming out next Monday.
Well, that's encouraging. Despite all the white backlash, they're still doing 2-1.
Yes, but what they don't tell is that I get a third of the Republicans. And that's the biggest backlash. And if you do any briefing for any columnist, you get back here. The brief ought to be that the big backlash is against Goldwater among his Republicans. Because every poll that anybody takes, Harris, Roper, individual Quayle polls show that 1 out of 3 Republicans are against Goldwater. But they only show 1 out of 10 Democrats against me.
Yeah.
So there's been a 10% Democratic backlash and a 33% Republican backlash.
You find that you just walk along the street here in New England, you find it in Pennsylvania. Some friends of mine are there. They say the Republicans are definitely in steel. They say every house they go into these days is just a knock-down, drag-out fight between Republicans. In fact, they have to give up having parties because they get in fights with each other. The Democrats are solid. Except a little bit among the unions there, a little white backlash at the moment.
Well, the point I want to make is that the articles that are being written, the commentators that are speaking, and the damned idiot Democrats that don't know any better are all saying, yes, we're really worried about the Polish backlash, or about this labor backlash, or about some other backlash. Well, the first thing you got to do is say, okay, what does it show? It shows we've got a 10% backlash that won't go with us. It's actually 8. We're 92%. We got 8. But what does it show? Well, we got 10. But how? What's the Republican? Well, they got 33.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Good argument.
Now listen, please don't let this come close to me. Just tell him that you're hearing this,
That's right.
and don't let it get around me.
I will.
Right.
Right.
As always, thank you so much for watching my videos. There are many of my videos I'm sure that you have not watched, you're probably not aware of. So please just scroll down through them and find something that you like. Thank you for your channel support.